Come on and sit aside.
Thanks, Paul.
So for
Let's get cozy. Let's get cozy.
Yeah, let's get cozy. For our audience, give us a bit of background.
Okay, well, you introduced me nicely. Thank you.
You're
My
very
name is Darren, and I'm head of private clients in CDS Law and Tax in town here. I suppose, just to give you guys a bit of context about me, I'm an out and proud gay man. I'm delighted to be here today. In fact, I feel very humbled to be following all the speakers we've had today. They've just been phenomenal and inspiring to me. But I suppose my story starts about 22 years ago, Paul. God, I can't believe 22 years. I feel old when I say these things out loud. Where I was involved in a very serious car accident as a passenger. And there was a High Court case ensued from that. And I was thrust into this environment which was very stuffy, to my perspective, formal, very male-orientated, that old-fashioned kind of boardroom kind of stuff. And while I felt it was all about me, I wasn't even involved in it. And I just felt kind of very intimidated by that environment. And I remember sitting there and, you know, I was obviously gay at the time. I mean, I've always been gay. And it was a family solicitor, as you do, you go to the family solicitor. I knew he knew my kind of history and that I was gay. And I was kind of like a second-class citizen in the room. And I felt like, you just sit there, we'll do all the work, don't you worry about it. And I just didn't like how that made me feel. And actually, as David said in his keynote speech today, like self-acceptance is self-confidence. And I felt I didn't have the confidence in that moment to be able to say, look, lads, this is about me. I need to be involved in it. And I kind of made a decision that there and then, I remember it like it was yesterday, that I would never make a client coming in to me to feel like that. And I wasn't even thinking law at that stage. I was a plumber. And because of the car accident, I couldn't do it anymore. And I took on a mantle of myself to actually go out and pursue a career in law because of that setting that I was involved in at the time. And I just made it very clear that now when clients come into me, thankfully 22 years later, I go out of my way to make them feel comfortable and make them relatable, especially for our own community, because I find it still can be an intimidating environment. And if I get the opportunity, I would say I'm an out and proud gay man. And you can see straight away that people's demeanor relax and they know that they can relate to me. And I strive to make that environment healthy and relatable and engaging for them, because while I might have 100 clients on a day doing work, that client for them is the most important thing in their life, and they should be treated with that respect and that give them the involvement of being involved in their matter, because it's all consuming for them, and rightly it should be. And that's why I'm here, just to let people know that we're out there and to seek us out, because, you know, we need to be seen, we need to be more transparent. As Ailva said, let's keep the fight going. And, you know, listening to David as well, like he's knocking on an institution there and he's taking away a brick. And we all need to take away the bricks just to take away those kind of barriers that society have built up over a long, long time. And that's why we do need the pride and proud to be, you know.
I think you're right. I think we've gone so far, but we've also so far to go, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we asked for questions
to
our Twitter poll, which we are now trending #1 in Ireland, by the way. So well done for you. Which is absolutely fantastic.
Go easy, man, Paul. This
I'm
is
going
kind of
to go
stuff.
relatively easy. I'm going to go very Ally McBeal on the situation right now. So, question #1. My husband and I are married, have a home and a few other investment properties, but have no wills. We are conscious that if we died together without leaving a will, how would our estate be distributed? So, in other words, who's getting the money?
Okay, exactly. And look, this wills is something that clients, they'll often think about. People, I say clients because it's just ingrained into me. People think about wills, but they don't do it because they think it's morbid. You should all do your wills, guys. It's very important, I suppose, coming in, drafting a good will is the key point. But there's a situation, and especially for people of our own community, where we mightn't have children, because automatically straight couples will have their kids and they'll get everything anyway. But if we don't have children, where's it all going to go exactly? So there's a clause that goes in the will that, you know, say you and I are married, that we...
Okay.
Sorry, John, my husband down there, he murdered me for that. But we put in a clause to the will to provide for, if you don't survive me by a certain amount of time, usually 30 days, the following will apply, and it's where it'll go. So it's just good consultation between your partner and your solicitor how you do that.
Okay, great. Next question. Unfortunately, unhappy differences have arisen between my wife and I. We've been separated now for about 2 years and there is no prospect of reconciliation. Can I get a divorce, or do I need to wait a certain amount of time for this? Also, how will our house and cash be divided between us? I have been the main provider in the marriage,
okay,
which is worse than because, we've all been in a relationship or,
Yes.
a partnership where one makes more than the other. So
Yeah.
how does that plan out?
Yeah, and look, that's the sad side of the family law aspect, and you see a lot of it, unfortunately. So the time limit has actually been decreased to 2 years since 2019 when they added that into the Act. So now if you're living apart for 2 years, you can apply for a divorce, which makes it easier in the context of before you had to go for a separation and then a divorce. And on top of the obviously sad part of it, it's the cost of it. So you can be living separate and apart for 2 years, but separate and apart doesn't have to be out of the same house because let's be real, like
That was my next question.
we're all living. We can barely afford to live. Let's call a spade where things are going. So you can be separate and apart, living in the same house. But I suppose the key point is for people to understand living separate and apart. Oh yeah, we might be having a sexual relationship. That is not the definition of living apart. You could be in an intimate relationship and still be deemed to be married even though not having sex. So if you're sharing finances and stuff like that, that's still deemed to be living together. So there is a distinction, but you can live under the same home and be separated. With regards to separating assets, what I always say to my clients is try and agree it yourselves, because if you go in front of a judge, you lose control effectively. So the judge will just look at the finances, the hard line. They'll listen to the story about what happened for who, but they won't make a contributing factor on what a judge will state. They'll look at the finances. So if you can just agree it between yourselves, you can get the divorce order and consent after that,
Is there a mediator between what you can decide yourselves? Because I know I wouldn't want to be in a room with half my exes, let alone talk about the money, Naomi. But is there a middle ground to that, like a mediating situation where you can just literally sit amongst a body of people to
Yes, you
decide
can.
it?
So you can have a mediator, and we always suggest mediation, of course, before they come to our level. And why mediation mightn't be binding, it sets out the kind of the framework for what they might agree them. And then if you are going the legal route, besides ourselves, you have the barristers and the counsel, and they will talk to each other. The clients will talk to the barristers, to us, and then they'll liaise with each other, and they come up with an agreement, hopefully, in between.
Great. Next question. I wish to purchase a home with my long-term partner. What is the best way to approach such purchase from a tax-efficient perspective? I'm all ears at this one.
Yes, so this is a funny one in the context, Paul, that lots of people come in and they're not married. I got married recently myself after 18 years, so thankfully I'm on the other side of the table. But they come in and they'll buy a house and they're all excited. And I'll say, are you going as joint tenants or tenants in common? And they look at you like with 10 heads, and you explain, if you buy as joint tenants, that if one of you die, you take the other share of survivorship. And that's great, they get the house. If you buy in tenants in common, it falls under your estate, the way you've made your will. But most people do the joint tenancy. But what they don't allow for is the tax element of the joint tenancy aspect if one of them die. So if you have a house worth, let's say, 500,000, you both equally contribute to it, 250 grand. The partner dies, you're effectively deemed to have gotten a gift. And if you're not married, you're strangers in blood, and you're at the lower threshold of the Group C threshold of just getting an exemption of, I think it's €16,250. So anything outside of that, you're taxed at 33%. So it's kind of something people don't think about. So my kind of quick answer is to people, if you're not married and you're buying a house, be married. There's other options around it, but that's the reality.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw 2 more at you before we let you go. My wife and I are the parents to 3 young children. We really need to make a will, and our priority is making sure our kids are looked after.
Okay.
What should we do?
Okay. Well, the main thing is when they're coming to do wills, this is, straight couples, gay couples with kids, is think about who you want your guardians to be. It's the key point. Visualize that, who will raise your kids if you die in the morning. I know it's morbid stuff. You have to think about who will raise your kids. People say, my parents will do it. And in all reality, parents are too old. Think of somebody of your contemporaries and your peers at that age who will rear your children. That's the most important thing, and it goes down in the will who the guardians and trustees of your kids are going to be, because it's the most important part of a will when you have children.
Do the guardians... Are the guardians then entrusted with money, the money
Yes.
that you would have left for the
Yes.
children? Or do they get that
Absolutely.
money, or is it put away, or is that your decision?
Yes, there's a few questions in there, Paul.
Sorry.
Absolutely. You're fine. So yes, those trustees, they're guardians and trustees, so they get the money that comes in under the estate of these people. It's all gathered in, it's liquidated if that's the wishes, and they can use that money for the benefit of the children and rearing them. So if they need to buy a bigger house, they can use that money. For their education, they can use that money, but ultimately it is the kids' money, so they have to act dutifully and they have obligations to do it, but they can use it for the kids' benefit, yeah.
Brilliant. My last question for you. My husband wants us to build a home together on his family's land. His parents have agreed to transfer the site to him into his sole name. Can the site not be transferred to both of us now, as I'm going to be jointly on the mortgage with him? I'm in a similar situation here with my own mother's house as well, actually.
These can be funny ones. and usually it's family land, you're probably, that person's referring to whoever they are there. So, you know, mom and dad come along and they give a site to their son, and the husband will say, why aren't I entitled with you? And it's usually, it's for tax reasons. So that, you know, the son is getting the site from the parents, but if they put the husband with their son on title, it's a taxable event again because he's a stranger in blood to the parents. So that's why that usually happens after 3 years. The spouse can go on title anyway. That's the timeline that they need to wait. But equally at the same time, the spouse will be on the mortgage with the husband anyway. So they're kind of seen to be, you know, liable to pay the mortgage, but they're not entitled. So look, they will need to get independent legal advice for that if that happens, because you're joint and severally liable on a mortgage. If you're both on it, means if one fella takes off, the other has to pay the mortgage. So they have to go into the rise open a little bit on that. But there is the long stop date of 3 years. You can go on title after that.
I would say to ask Darren any more questions at the networking event that we'll have directly after here, but unfortunately he's very busy while I talk to him about everything in my life, including prenups, houses and children. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, you can talk to Darren after this event. Give it up for Darren, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Cheers. Thanks, Paul. Thanks very much.